The job came in as routine. That's how they always start. Shallow coastal survey, limestone shelf, known for erosion, minor collapses, nothing serious. The kind of place that gets rescanned every few years just to keep charts updated. I was assigned because I'd done similar work before. Multi-beam sonar, side scan passes, clean, methodical, no diving required. That was the first thing the coordinator said. Remote work only, no need to enter the water. I didn't question it. At the time, it sounded like a benefit. The sinkhole showed up on the first pass. Not flagged, not highlighted, just there. A clean circular drop in the seafloor, perfectly defined. Too perfect. I adjusted the gain, ran another sweep. The edges stayed sharp, no sediment buildup, no gradual slope, just a sudden drop into something deeper than the surrounding shelf should allow. I marked it for closer inspection. That's when the file attached itself. No notification, no tag, just a document sitting in the dataset folder. Untitled. I opened it. No header, no author, just a short list. Sinkhole Observation Guidelines 1. Do not reduce sonar smoothing below default levels. 2. Do not run more than 3 consecutive passes over the opening. 3. Do not zoom into the interior once the bottom disappears from scan. 4. If the edge appears irregular, stop scanning immediately. 5. Do not deploy cameras into the opening. 6. If you feel the need to verify depth manually, do not proceed. 7. Do not anchor directly above the sinkhole. 8. If the opening appears to change size between passes, leave the area. 9. Avoid scanning during low light conditions. 10. If you hear anything through the hull while above the site, move immediately. I read it twice. It didn't match any standard protocol. No formatting, no reference number, just instructions. I checked the system logs. No record of who uploaded it. That should have been enough to escalate. But the sinkhole kept pulling my attention back. I ran a second pass, within the rules. The opening remained perfectly circular. Edges clean, too clean. Natural formations don't do that. Not like this. I adjusted the angle slightly, and that's when I noticed it. The edge wasn't smooth, not exactly. It just looked that way at a distance. Up close, there were variations, small, evenly spaced. I leaned closer to the screen. They weren't random, they repeated, patterned. I stopped. Rule 4. If the edge appears irregular, stop scanning immediately. I pulled back, reset the view. The edge looked smooth again, perfect circle, no pattern. I sat there for a moment, then ran a third pass, last one allowed. This time, I didn't adjust anything, just let the sonar map it as is. The image came back clean, but the depth reading, cut off, not maxed, not error, just absent, like the signal had nothing to return from. I hovered the cursor over the opening, didn't zoom, didn't enhance, just stared, and something about it felt wrong, not visually, structurally, like the hole wasn't just deeper than expected, it was deeper than it should be able to be. I leaned back, closed the file, marked the area for review. That should have been the end of it. But later that night, I ran one more pass, off schedule. I told myself it didn't count. Just one quick look. The water was darker now, low light. I didn't think about Rule 9. The scan returned slower than before, grainier, but the opening was larger. Not by much, but enough. I froze, checked the previous data. Compared coordinates, same location, same conditions. The sinkhole had expanded slightly. I felt a tightness in my chest. Rule 8. If the opening appears to change size between passes, leave the area. I should have. Instead, I adjusted the gain, just slightly. The edge sharpened, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. The irregularities weren't erosion. They were points, triangular, evenly spaced, facing inward, like teeth. I pulled my hand away from the controls. The image held. Didn't flicker, didn't distort, just stayed there, a perfect circle, lined with rows of sharp, inward-facing structures. Too uniform, too precise. Not rock. I didn't run another pass, didn't move the vessel, just sat there. Because something else had started to happen. The sonar was picking up movement, not inside the hole, at the edge, subtle. The points were shifting, not breaking, not collapsing, adjusting. Like they were responding to something. I didn't move, didn't touch the controls, because I had a feeling, if I did, they would react to that too. Then, I heard it, not through the speakers, through the hull. A faint sound, slow, rhythmic, like something closing. I shut the system down immediately, cut the feed, started the engine, moved the vessel off position, didn't look back, didn't run another scan. The next morning, I checked the data again. The sinkhole was still there, same size as before, perfect circle, smooth edges, no irregularities, no teeth, no movement, the depth reading, still absent. I filed the report, standard language, unusual geological formation, further study recommended. Didn't attach the file, didn't mention the guidelines, didn't mention the sound, but before I closed the system, I noticed one last thing. The coordinates had shifted, not far, just enough, that if someone returned to the original location, they wouldn't find it. Not exactly, I haven't gone back, but sometimes, when I review unrelated scans, I see it again, not in the same place, not always in open water, sometimes near coastlines, sometimes further out, always the same shape, perfect circle, too clean, and every time, I stop before the third pass, because I know now, it's not just a sinkhole, and it's not staying where it was found, it's moving, slowly, and whatever those edges are, they're not there to keep things out, they're there for when something gets close enough to finally see how deep it actually goes. I didn't request another assignment in that sector, didn't need to. The work has a way of circling back on its own. 2 weeks later, a new dataset came through, different coastline, different country, same classification, routine depth verification. I almost ignored it, but the coordinates felt familiar, not identical, but close enough that something in me recognized the pattern. I opened it. First pass, nothing unusual. Gradual slope, sand ridges, minor rock outcroppings, clean. Second pass, there it was, not centered, not obvious, just a slight drop, circular, perfect. I didn't zoom, didn't adjust, just let the scan finish. The depth reading, cut out again, same as before, no bottom. I leaned back slowly because I hadn't broken any rules yet. This was still within normal parameters, still deniable. Then I noticed something else. The surrounding terrain was different, not geologically, structurally. The seafloor around the opening looked disturbed, not eroded, compressed, like something had settled into place. From above, I checked the previous scan. The formation hadn't been there. No depression, no anomaly, just flat seabed, which meant it hadn't formed. It had arrived. I didn't run a third pass, closed the file, sat there for a long time, because the rules weren't written for a single location. They followed it, whatever it was. Later that night, I couldn't leave it alone. I didn't open the scan. I opened the guidelines, read them again, slower this time, not as warnings, as instructions for something specific. Rule 7, do not anchor directly above the sinkhole. That one had seemed obvious before. Now it didn't, because anchoring would fix your position, hold you in place, exactly where it needed you. I closed the document, didn't sleep much. The next morning, I got a message from another surveyor. Didn't know him well, just someone who worked a nearby region. Hey, you ever see weird drop-offs that don't return depth? I stared at it, didn't respond right away. Then another message. Think my sonar's glitching. Edge looks wrong. My chest tightened. I typed, then stopped, because I didn't know what to say that wouldn't make it worse. He sent a screenshot. I didn't want to open it, but I did. Same circle, same clean edge, same absence of depth. But he'd already done more than I had. The image was sharper, closer, too close. The edge was clearly visible, the points unmistakable. Rows of inward-facing spikes, denser than before, closer together, and in the center, something else. Not a bottom, a shape, faint, just barely resolved. I felt my stomach drop, because I knew what that meant. He'd gone past the third pass. I typed quickly. Stop scanning. Move away. No response. I waited. Nothing. Then another message. Not text. Audio. I hesitated, then pressed play. Static at first. Then, that same sound. Through his hull. Slow. Rhythmic. Closer than it had been for me. Then, a second sound. Sharp. Metal under strain. I shut it off. Didn't listen to the rest. Didn't need to. I knew what happened when you stayed too long. Not exactly, but enough. His system went offline after that. No further messages, no follow-up. I checked the next day. His last known coordinates showed nothing. No sinkhole, no anomaly, just open water. Clean, normal. I didn't report it. Didn't escalate, because I've started to understand something. It doesn't leave evidence. It doesn't stay where it was seen. and it doesn't need to chase anything. It just appears where someone is willing to look a little longer than they should. I still work, still run scans, still take assignments, but I never go past the second pass, and I never stay still over anything that feels too clean, because I don't think those edges are part of the whole. I think they're part of something else, something that only shows itself when you're close enough to measure it, and still long enough for it to start closing. I started declining live surveys after that. Anything that required holding position over a target, anchoring, drifting, hovering, I passed it off. Desk work only, archived data, that was the plan. It didn't hold, because the data started coming in already past the second pass, not flagged, not labeled, just included. You'd open a routine file, and it would already be too clean, too centered, like someone else had done the first steps and left you with the part you weren't supposed to reach. I learned to recognize it quickly. If the circle was already defined, I closed it, didn't verify, didn't confirm, just moved on. Most people didn't. They'd zoom, enhance, run comparisons, try to understand it. That's what the job trains you to do. But I started noticing a pattern, not in the formations, in the people. Shorter responses, missed check-ins, systems going offline mid-session, always the same kind of assignment, always near water, and always someone who went just a little further than they should have. I stopped talking about it. There's no way to explain why you don't want to look at something without making someone want to look at it more. Instead, I started watching the timing, how long it took from first detection to disappearance. It wasn't random, it was consistent, a window, small, from the moment it appears to the moment it's gone, and that window shrinks the more it's observed. I confirmed that accidentally. A data set came in with timestamps, multiple passes, different operators. The first pass, wide, unclear. Second, defined. Third, closer. By the fourth, the opening was larger. By the fifth, there was no data, not because it disappeared, because the feed ended. I didn't need the rest. I could see the pattern. The more attention it gets, the faster it resolves. And once it resolves, it doesn't stay. Not there, not anywhere you can measure again. I stopped opening shared data sets after that, worked only with raw feeds, live or single pass. Anything else was already too far along. One night, I broke my own rule, not intentionally. I was reviewing a coastal update, routine, no flags, but something about the terrain felt too uniform. I checked the metadata. 3 passes had already been run. I froze, closed it, but not fast enough, because the image had already settled, centered, perfect. I could feel it, not visually, the way everything in the frame aligned, just a little too cleanly. I leaned back, broke the angle, but it didn't drop completely. It lingered. That was new. I stood up, moved away from the station, and for a moment, I thought I heard something. Not loud, not clear, just a faint, dragging sound across metal. I didn't go back to the screen, didn't check the file, shut the system down, left the room. The next morning, the dataset was gone. No record, no log, just replaced with a standard coastal scan, clean. I checked the assignment history. 3 names attached to it, 2 inactive, 1 reassigned. No notes, no explanation. That's when it became clear. This isn't just about seeing it, it's about how far it gets before it disappears. And every time someone looks a little longer, it finishes faster. I don't think it's hunting. I don't think it's chasing anything. I think it's waiting for the right amount of attention to complete whatever it started when it first appeared. And the closer we get, the less time it needs. I don't go near open water anymore, not even for work, because the rules were written for when it stayed in one place. Now it doesn't need to. It just needs someone to look at it long enough for it to decide that it's close enough to close. I thought stepping away would be enough. No field work, no live feeds, no second passes, just distance. It didn't work, because eventually, you don't need the equipment anymore. That realization came quietly. I was in a dry dock review meeting. No water, no sonar, just structural diagrams of a hull section, routine, the kind of thing I'd seen 100 times. And then, I noticed it. A curve. Too clean, not wrong, not unusual, just exact. I leaned back. The line held, didn't shift, didn't lose coherence, and for a second, I saw it. Not as a drawing, as an opening, circular, perfect. I blinked. It was gone. Just a hull cross-section again. No anomaly, no depth. I didn't say anything, didn't point it out, because I understood something new. It doesn't need water. That was just where we first recognized it. It needs structure, defined edges, a boundary that can be interpreted as an opening, and once you've seen it enough, your mind does the rest. I left the meeting early, didn't give a reason. Went outside, stood in the parking lot. Nothing aligned, nothing felt off, just open space. For a moment, I thought that meant I was clear. Then I looked down at a drainage grate, circular, perfectly cut, uniform spacing between the bars. I stepped back immediately, didn't let it settle, didn't let the shape resolve, because I could already feel it. That same pull, not physical, cognitive, like if I just stood there long enough, the space between those bars would stop being surface and start being depth. I left, didn't look at anything circular on the way back, didn't let my eyes linger on edges. But it didn't matter, because once you've seen it, it doesn't stay confined to where it first appeared. It starts to show up in anything that matches the pattern, not physically, structurally. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, kept the lights dim, avoided reflections, tried to keep everything irregular, but I couldn't unsee it. Every circle, every clean edge, every uniform spacing carried the possibility, not that it was there, that it could be. And that's enough, because the rules, they were never about the sinkhole itself. They were about recognition, about stopping you before your mind completes the shape, before it turns something normal into something that has depth it shouldn't. I don't think it's spreading. I think we are. We build cleaner, more precise, more uniform. We create more shapes that match the conditions, and every one of them is a place where it could appear if someone looks at it the wrong way for just a second too long. I don't scan anymore, don't review data, don't take assignments, because there's no separation left, not between the job and everything else. It's the same pattern, just different surfaces. I still hear it sometimes. Faint, not through a hull, through walls, through floors, slow, rhythmic, like something testing a boundary, not trying to break through. Just checking if the shape is complete enough to start closing. I don't stand still when I hear it. I don't look for the source, because I know now it's not coming from somewhere else. It's coming from wherever something around me has become just precise enough to be mistaken for an opening. And all it needs is for me to believe for a second that it goes deeper than it should. I started removing things. Not everything, just the shapes, cups, plates, drains, anything circular, anything evenly spaced. Anything that could resolve too cleanly if I looked at it the wrong way. It made the apartment feel wrong, not unsafe, incomplete, but that was the point. The more irregular it was, the harder it was for anything to settle. For a while, that worked. No sounds, no moments where something almost opened, just uneven space. Then I noticed something I hadn't planned for. Absence creates patterns too. The gaps where things used to be, the way objects were spaced now, it started forming its own structure, not intentional, but consistent enough that if I stood in the right place, it would align anyway. I stopped trying to control the room after that, because it doesn't matter what you remove or what you add, there's always a position where it fits. That's the part the rules never said out loud. You can't eliminate the shape, you can only delay finding the angle where it becomes one. I went outside more after that, open spaces, irregular ground, places that didn't have clean edges. It helped, until I realized even the horizon can become a curve if you look at it long enough. I stopped looking far, kept my focus close, small details, uneven surfaces, but even those start to resolve if you stay still. That's when I understood what the last rule should have been, not written, but implied. Don't trust depth, not measured depth, perceived depth. The moment something feels like it goes further than it should, that's the moment it starts. Not because it's actually deeper, because your mind has already accepted that it could be. And once you accept that, the rest follows. I tested that once. Carefully. I looked at something flat, a wall. No patterns, no symmetry. Just a surface. I stared at it, long enough that it stopped being just a wall. Not visually, conceptually. It felt like it had space behind it, more than it should. I stepped away immediately, didn't let it settle, because that's all it needs. Not a perfect circle, not a defined edge, just the idea that something goes further than it should. That's enough to start it. I don't try to avoid shapes anymore. I avoid that feeling. The moment where something stops being surface and starts being depth, because that's the real threshold, not what you see, what you accept. And once you cross that, there's nothing left that tells you where the surface ends and where it starts closing. I started noticing how early it begins. Not when something opens, Not when it becomes obvious. Before that. At the moment you decide something is there, not visually, conceptually. I caught it once. I was standing in the hallway, looking at the floor. Nothing unusual, just tile. Then one section felt slightly darker, not by color, by depth, like it dropped a fraction lower than the rest. I didn't move, just watched it, and I felt the shift start, that quiet adjustment, where my mind began to treat it differently, not as part of the floor, as something separate. That was the moment. Before anything changes, before anything appears, just that decision. This is deeper than it should be. I stepped away. It vanished instantly, back to flat, back to normal. But I understood something I hadn't before. It doesn't begin with the shape, it begins with the idea. The rules, the scans, the passes, those just create conditions where the idea is easier to form. But once you've seen it, you don't need those anymore. Your mind does it on its own. I think that's why it feels like it's spreading, not because it's moving, because more people have learned what to look for, even if they don't realize it. A second too long staring at water, at a reflection, at a shadow, and suddenly, something feels like it goes deeper than it should. That's all it takes. After that, everything else is just a matter of time and how long you let it continue. I don't let it continue. Not anymore. The moment I feel that shift, I move, break it, interrupt it, because I don't think there's a point where you can stop it once it gets far enough. Not cleanly, and I've seen what happens when someone goes further than that. Not directly, but enough. Silence, missing logs, missing people, clean data where something should have been. That's the end state, not destruction, not damage, just absence, like whatever was there was never meant to stay once it completed. I still hear it sometimes, faint. That slow, rhythmic pressure, closer now than it used to be. Not outside, inside the space I'm in, waiting, not for a location, for a moment, for that single shift where something becomes just deep enough to matter. And I know, one day, I won't catch it in time. I'll hesitate, just a little longer than I should, and that idea will settle into something real. And when it does, I don't think it will matter what rules I remember or how fast I move, because by then I won't be trying to avoid it anymore. I'll be trying to understand just how deep it actually goes. I started counting the delay, the gap between when I noticed it and when I moved. At first, it was immediate. The moment something felt off, I stepped away. No hesitation, no chance for it to settle. Then it got harder, not because I was slower, because the feeling was weaker, more subtle, easier to ignore. I'd catch it, but it didn't feel urgent anymore. Just a slight sense that something might be deeper than it should be. And that's enough to make you pause. Just a fraction longer, that's all it needs. I timed it once, 3 seconds. From the moment I noticed to the moment it started to change. Not visually, internally, the shift in how I understood what I was looking at. After that, it accelerates, not fast, but steadily. Each second makes it easier to accept the depth, easier to stop questioning it, easier to let it continue. I don't let it get that far anymore, but I've come close, closer than I should have. A few nights ago, I was in the bathroom, dim light, tile, flat surfaces. Safe, I thought. Then I looked into the sink, dry, empty, and for a moment, it didn't feel like a basin, it felt like an opening. Not deep, just slightly more than it should be. I froze. That was the mistake. 1 second. 2. By the third, I could feel it settling. That quiet acceptance. The sense that if I leaned in, I'd see further than I should. I stepped back hard, almost slipped. The feeling snapped. The sink was just a sink again. Shallow. Normal. But I stood there longer than I needed to. Because I realized it doesn't take much anymore. Not a perfect circle, not a defined edge, just the right moment and the wrong amount of stillness. I don't know how many times I've interrupted it. I don't know how many times I didn't catch it early enough, but got away before it completed. And I don't know how many times I didn't even realize it started. That's the part I think about now, not the times I noticed, the times I didn't, the moments that passed without anything obvious happening, but still felt just slightly too smooth, too consistent, like something had already resolved before I had a chance to question it. I still move, still break it when I can, but I know I'm not catching all of them. No one is, and that means somewhere, something is finishing. Not loudly, not visibly, just quietly settling into place the moment someone doesn't step away fast enough. I don't think it needs many of those, just enough. And eventually, one of them won't be interrupted. One of them will go all the way, and I won't know if I'm the one who let it happen, or just the one who finally noticed that it already had. I stopped trying to catch it, not completely, just differently. I realized something about the delay. It's not the same every time. 3 seconds was just the last one I noticed. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes longer, but it always follows the same pattern: recognition, acceptance, completion.